All right, everyone, let's get started. Welcome back to the last session of Breakpoint. It's been great couple of days, and I'm really looking forward to this last talk by Erika. I think it's a very interesting and oft talked about topic around manual testing. So looking forward to hear Erika's thoughts around this. So Erika is from Calendly, and she's somebody she heads the QA team at Calendly. By her own description, her leadership style starts and stops with relationships. She's got over 20 years of experience in the tech industry, from application development to spinning up new quality teams. And she's learned to lead with grace, patience, and a little bit of snarky humor. Her mission is to help people lead from a more compassionate space to build teams that are engaged, empowered, and excited. Over to you, Erika.
Hi, thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Let me go ahead and get my screen share set up. Lots of clickety clicks. Oh. All right.
Yep, I can see your screen.
Okay. All right. Well, hey there. Hey, I'm Erika. And if you like, you can contact me through my website, tweet with me on Twitter, or connect with me on LinkedIn. A little bit about me: I'm a roller skater, a boy mom, a twin mom, and fun fact, I'm a reformed developer. I started my career as a developer. I was working for this small startup advertising agency as a classic ASP developer. It was all the rage before .NET. And before you go there, I am not old, I'm just well seasoned. Anywho, as the company grew, so did I. I got hip to .NET as it rolled on the scene. I even became a Microsoft certified professional with a solutions architecture certification. It's a mouthful, I know. My point really is just to say that I was fully bought into the development scene, and QA wasn't even on my radar. In fact, it wasn't on anyone's radar, and it was a problem that started to surface in some pretty nasty ways. Here's what happened. Our client had a big one-day event. They had spent a significant amount of money on print, online, and TV ads. These ads all directed to this one landing page that our agency had developed for them. This one landing page had one job. It was supposed to tell the consumers about the one product and then use the one very large link on the page to redirect consumers to the purchase page specifically set up for them to purchase that product. Well, as lack of quality would have it, that one link on that one page for that big one-day event, you guessed it, did not link to that purchase page. I want you to chime in on chat for me and tell me where you think the link went. I want to hear from you. Be creative. All right. Here we go. Yeah, it was the cat playing a piano. It was pretty bad. Now, of course, all of us here can map at least 10 different ways. Yes, seriously, it went there, that the process broke down for that to happen. But what it boils down to, there was no formal testing process. And as you can imagine, the company lost a portion of the business. Heads rolled and leadership demanded a response from the teams. How were you going to fix this? Now, I'd like to say that they came, didn't go where it's supposed to. Are you guys getting forwarded? Are my screens moving forward for you? They have to be. Okay. Are you getting my screens moving forward now? It was like.
Yeah, I can see. I will.
Okay, sorry. It's not a bug, it's a feature. They said, hey, Erika, or at least I was saying, yeah, Erika, you're the best person to fix this. That's what they were coming to me, but alas, that's not the story. However, I had been leading several development squads for about 6 months, and my conversations more and more started to turn towards quality. Specifically, how could we improve it? Those conversations reached the ears of leadership, which in turn led to another conversation where they asked me to start the company's first quality department. And of course, my response was, absolutely not. I'm not gonna be the scapegoat. You're not gonna blame me for the cat. No. Sad side note, even here as a developer, I instinctively felt that QA is where the blame fell. I felt that the organization wanted someone to shoulder the entire burden of quality, which was even more crazy because as a dev leader, I had an understanding of how the issues were creeping in. And a test team would absolutely help to improve that. So after a few conversations, some bribes, some dinner, some drinks, okay, yeah, definitely some drinks, I said yes. That yes may or may have been directly related to the drinks. And yes, you heard me correctly. I did say may or may, but that's neither here nor there. I jumped in. I poured over content, books, articles from industry leaders. I attended conferences and engaged industry leaders. I was all in. I loved the process, strategy, and organization that was needed to pull a QA team together out of the rubble of a development lifecycle that had never considered, let alone participated or valued its participation. This foundation, along with a career of experiences, has shaped my view of the role we as human testers can and should play in our organization. I believe we need to resurrect, reclaim, and redefine manual testing. In doing so, we reconnect with our core mission, hone our craft, and showcase our value beyond testing just the delivered application. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll come back to the 3 R's in just a bit. So I'm here in QA. I didn't know a thing about building and leading QA teams, and I definitely felt the weight of those disadvantages. But I had some advantages too. I leaned in on my 6 years of experience at the company. I knew the domain and clients. I had developed relationships and had a good rapport with leaders and others in the organization. Leaning in on these advantages have shaped my experiences and my view of how and when QA should engage, which, to be clear, is always. Here, the conversation didn't start with just testing. I had to help the client services team figure out how they communicated with, engaged, and build testing services. I started by socializing and promoting the value of testing. I had to bring quality to the forefront of the conversation and champion it as a first-class citizen in the existing delivery lifecycle. And I wasn't limited by preconceived expectations around where and when I should engage. I had questions, and I needed to engage for answers from leaders, stakeholders, individual contributors, and consumers. In my mind, there was no area that was off limits for QA to engage. In fact, I thought we were supposed to be involved in everything. Things like process and documentation could absolutely benefit from an interaction with testing, right? I was involved so much that looking back now, I can imagine people saying, dang, Erika is nosy. But listen, during this time of socializing the value of testing and, okay, yes, being nosy, I learned that communication, collaboration, and engagement were a key part of building new quality processes and developing a strong test strategy. By engaging at all levels, I was able to fully understand the impact of poor quality on the whole organization. This information provided insights to develop the test process, strategy, tools, and tools that would help us improve our quality. So in this case, testing was the easy part. It was the buy-in, the collaboration, the inclusion that we had to work on first. Even though I was building a QA team, I had to involve myself in these other areas of the business. I had to identify, clear, and set my own place at the table. That meant I was interviewing stakeholders, documenting existing processes, gathering customer feedback, assessing the value of artifacts like wireframes and mockups. These inputs were vital to identifying how to solve the quality concerns in a way that benefited the organization, our clients, and our clients' customers as well. In socializing the value of QA, I showcased how infusing quality earlier with things like engaging to improve those processes, highlighting what artifacts were valuable to the test process, and providing feedback and design discussions, how they were all part of the quality experience. And it was on us to keep QA in the conversation. So I shifted from value socialization to inclusion monitor. I was often heard saying things like, "Thanks for the heads up. Don't forget to include QA in your updates." Or, "Ooh, did you forget to include QA in your kickoff meeting?" Or, "Make sure QA is on the bill to the client. We don't want another piano cat incident." Yeah, I probably played that one up a little too much, but it works. The great thing about this new department was that people were eager to improve quality and they didn't have any preconceived views of what testing should or shouldn't look like. They wanted help. They were open to that help. It was easy to get into those discussions, to get into a rhythm of expecting engagement from QA. I remember even being included in a reorg concept discussion because they wanted to validate the idea and thought that engagement from the test team during the concept phase would be valuable. Socialized QA value? Check. It was around that time in my career that I developed my first business mantra. You see, with each organization I've joined, I've learned lessons that have turned into mantras that I carry with me. Some of my team members may tell you that I repeat them ad nauseum, but we're not talking to them right now. The mantra I developed here: engage and socialize QA's value. For me, this mantra cements the idea that it should be easy and expected that QA is involved and engaged at all levels. But I know it's not always that easy, is it? At times, we've been up against negative perceptions of QA, skepticism, lack of advocacy, and sometimes even annoyance at our role as manual testers. Chime in on the chat if you've heard this before. Manual testers aren't technical enough. Manual testers aren't fast enough. Manual testers don't understand enough. Manual testers aren't enough. Yeah, I know I have. I see you guys so often, right? In fact, I heard it the very first week I joined a large organization as director of QA. I sat down to interview one of the executive leaders about quality at the organization, and I quickly found out that he had a very unfavorable view of the QA team, not just manual testing, but the QA team as a whole. In fact, he proceeded to count the ways the test team was failing. Here were a few. He said, "We have too many manual testers." Then he said, "We don't have enough test automation." Then he said, "We're moving too slowly." And finally, he said, "We're not catching the right issues." Spoiler alert, this is common feedback. I've heard it when I join new organizations that are looking to build, grow, or transform the QA team. I hear it when I consult with leaders who are trying to build a new team, or when I consult with founders and CTOs who are trying to figure out how to solve their quality concerns when they believe, here we go, the problem starts and stops in the QA review column. Yeah. Now, don't get me wrong. These are all very real and important problems to solve. And there may be a number of you that hear this and think, yeah, this can easily be fixed by test automation. You know what I hear? QA isn't valued. QA isn't included. QA isn't accountable. QA isn't engaged. Case in point, I recently consulted a tester who was very passionate about his role and was trying desperately to figure out how to get leadership to value the voice of quality within his organization. He was raising concerns about the impact their current processes were having on the test experience and ultimately the quality of their product. His concerns were pushed to the side and ignored. He didn't have anyone championing for quality in his organization. As you can imagine, that lack of advocacy from leadership comes with some major hits to the quality team's morale and ultimately their perceived value in the organization. QA team members aren't included in critical conversations. QA work is not accounted for as part of the definition of done. Testing is perceived as a bottleneck. Test activities are perceived as overkill. Yeah, I saw a couple of you comment about that. This results in a testing team that is less confident, afraid to speak up, and does not provide the full value that they are capable of. That vicious cycle continues as engineering leaders perceive value of manual testing diminishes further because they don't see engagement from the quality team. Remember, manual testers aren't enough. This perceived value leads to low expectations, driving the marginalization of the manual testing function to one column of the SDLC, which turns into leadership believing they can replace testers with the machine, leaving manual testers feeling even more disempowered, resulting in even less engagement and communication. And then it starts all over again. What's even worse, that cycle is then carried forward with news testers. In Practice recent quality report, they stated that 65% of us learn testing on the job. Chances are they're learning from other testers who also learned on the job. What did those testers learn? Vicious cycle. This means we see teams of testers that don't know their truest value. They are being told what is expected of them by leadership, which, as we talked about earlier, is a boxed-in view that does not take advantage of the true value that manual testers bring to the table. Okay? What it boils down to is that what leaders believe manual testing is actually a distancing of the tester from the process, from their craft, from their mission. Now, I want to shift for just a second and give a shout out to my leaders. As innovators in the space, we need to champion the value of manual testing, not only outside of the test team, but internally as well. I know that there are talks about new roles in our testing universe, like quality coaches and advocates, and I believe that those can be valuable. Now, don't come for me all at once, preferably not at all, please. But I think some of these trends come from the pendulum swinging too far away from leveraging the value of manual testing. With a high focus on test automation as an exclusive test strategy, we're enabling that boxed-in perception, we're enabling that boxed-in expectation perpetuated by a vicious cycle of undervaluing and ultimately disempowering our manual testers. That value is being shifted into new job titles when these are roles our manual testers can and should do. In fact, many manual testers are doing those things today, but we have to partner as leaders with our toolbox to create the space for them to do it consistently, at scale, and with excellence. As QA leaders, we have to own that shift and make sure that we understand and communicate the value of our manual testers alongside those new roles and advocate for quality together. Because we know the truth. You can't have truly impactful testing without the human. You cannot have truly impactful testing without the human. And it's on us, both leaders and individual contributors, to champion that truth. Manual testers bring the heart of the business to technical conversations. Manual testers bring your customer's voice inside the walls of the organization. Manual testers bring quality to the forefront of the conversation and help drive not only automation delivery, but the overall quality of what is being automated. Developers speak the language of the machine. Manual testers speak the language of your customer. They are the bridge. So again, you cannot have truly impactful testing without the human. Test automation is designed by humans, but we only uncover issues we've told it to watch for, and it's only intended to work against a delivered component. In a recent study, System Sciences Institute at IBM reported that it costs 6 times more to fix a bug found during implementation phase versus design phase. Furthermore, according to IBM, the cost to fix bugs found during the testing phase could be 15 times more than the cost to fix them during the design phase. I'm tripping over my words, 15 times more. So if we're waiting on test automation to uncover the issues, we're spending more money to do it. We've got to get out of this box because it's costing your company money. And listen, if you're getting a bonus, it's costing you money too. It's time to let the humans do the work. So how do we do that? How do we put ourselves back in the conversation? How do we bring our seat back to the table? That table where developers and others are at, most of them very eager to get the support that we can provide. Remember I mentioned earlier in my career that I had that misguided view of QA as the the team where the blame fell. Yeah. Sadly, we do still see this happen in less mature organizations. That also means there's an opportunity here to socialize the value of manual testing specifically, to share how test automation is not a silver bullet, but instead part of our toolbox. We need to come together at that table to redefine it, and not just as manual testers, but together as a team with product owners, developers, designers, customer support, automation engineers, SDETs, everyone. We need to resurrect, reclaim, and redefine manual testing because it is not dead. But it has to start with you. You've got to shake off those preconceived and negative views. No, okay, no, really, you right now. Can you get your Taylor Swift on and shake it off? Just let it go. Reset your expectations of what manual testing can and should be. Know your worth. Own your strengths. Acknowledge your value. And then bring all that goodness to the table. Once you acknowledge your value and own your strengths, then we get to put in the work on the 3 R's to resurrect, reclaim, and redefine manual testing. Because, that's right, it's not dead. In resurrecting, we get back to the basics like requirements testing, actually testing, not only reading and then writing acceptance criteria or test cases, looking for those inconsistencies or inaccuracies across the stories being developed. Evaluate the impact of the new functionality on the existing application by thinking through the workflow of the implementation. What questions do you have? Does it all make sense? Did you find that in your mental mapping of the flow, it got garbled in some way? Share that feedback. Talk to the team. Your feedback may very well have uncovered a user experience issue that you are now saving the customer from. Not only that, you've saved your customer support team. They don't have to field that call. You've saved your marketing team. They don't have to overwrite documentation to explain a garbled user flow. You've saved your development team. The implementation requirements will likely be even more clearly defined and straightforward. Owning this part of the conversation as a manual tester brings value and saves money. Remember, 15 times more to fix these type of issues in the test phase versus design phase. We need to resurrect those foundational test practices, the ones that have been pushed to the wayside as we've become more and more agile. They can still fit into our efficient and speedy agile test strategy. Things like condition testing, static analysis, like data flow testing, personas, workflows, use case testing, just to name a few. They're tools in our toolbox that we need to resurrect and come back to. And in resurrecting those test practices and more, you're increasing your knowledge. You're increasing your toolbox. You're increasing your exposure into the application. You're you're diving deeper into your craft and also showcasing your strengths. All of this ultimately empowers you with more to bring to the table and the conversation. That's when we pounce and reclaim our seat at the table and our voice in the conversation. Be nosy. Yes, it's okay. Ask questions, even the ones you think are silly. Don't be afraid to crash the party because you bring your own treats to the party. And I'm not talking about cupcakes. I'm talking about your value, your worth, your strengths. That knowledge you gained as you honed your craft, domain knowledge you've developed through exposure, customer perspective, heart. Invite yourself to the conversation. Show up to the meeting, literally and figuratively. Hear me. I've seen so many times where manual testers are in the space, but not in the conversation. They've checked out, disengaged, and likely because they feel disempowered. But to reclaim, we need to first commit to fully showing up. One of my favorite books is Leading Quality by Cummings, John, and Pierre. They talk about the impact of poor quality on the 3 C's, customer, company, and career, stating that poor quality was estimated to have cost companies over $1.7 trillion in 2017. How can we not reclaim our seat at the table and our voice in the conversation when there's so much at stake? Again, that means showing up, stepping outside of the low expectation and shining a light on your true value. Engage in those conversations, provide feedback, share insights, test all the things. It doesn't mean to test every single, like the product, because I had somebody come back to me on that. I'm not saying test every single thing in the product, but there are multiple areas across that delivery lifecycle where you can test and be involved. Test everything. Get in the conversation. Now, I know 2020 was a lot. 2021 is where it's at. And we had some major impacts on how we work. And I will not be the one to argue that remote work has its fair share of challenges. And so because of that, this idea of reclaiming can understandably feel pretty hard right now. But the good news, the full reliance on digital meeting spaces has actually made the table a whole lot larger. Let's take advantage of this unique opportunity to create a shift in our space, to change the narrative and raise the expectation. This pandemic has been a complete disruptor in the industry. Let's make the most of it. Teams are building new processes to keep engaged. Get QA in there. Take advantage of the conversation being open to intentionally embed the engagement of quality sooner and reclaim our voice in the conversations. In agile offices, we had open spaces, which created the opportunity to hear different conversations and jump in. We don't have that anymore. Leaders are concerned about that breakdown in communication. This is a perfect opportunity for test teams, manual testers, humans to shine, to really own, drive the collaboration and engagement for the purpose of improving quality, ensuring that teams are all on the same page with things like documentation, like workflow diagrams. Again, I'll just keep saying that, it's my favorite, personas, implementation plans. At Calendly, our team has really stepped up their game when it comes to documenting. And as a result, more information is shared with us. The teams want to make sure that we understand what's under development because they know that we'll document it. It's a win-win. Lean into this disruption as an opportunity to reclaim. You've got to walk into these conversations like we're bringing testing back. Yeah, that's legit my testing theme song for the rest of 2021. And now it's stuck in your head too. You're welcome. As manual testers, this is your chance to really shine and show them all the amazing skills that you have that some organizations think that they can automate out. But you have to do the work. You have to show up and show off your skills. Communication, collaboration, engagement, facilitation, questionization. Okay, I know that's not a word, but you get what I'm saying. Questioning, that's one of our superpowers. Question all the things. Showing up and showing off will reclaim your seat at the table because you can't deny excellence. Now, I'm sure some of you are saying there's absolutely no time for this, no time to resurrect or reclaim. That's when we want to begin to redefine manual testing. We want to redefine how manual testers interact with their toolbox to give them more space, time, and freedom to operate as a quality coach or advocate. The big one, leveraging test automation as a tool and not a standalone test strategy. Manual testing and test automation are not mutually exclusive. It's supposed to be a partnership between the two where manual testers feed into automation to improve its value by driving things like the quality and priority of tests written. In turn, test automation opens up more opportunities for manual testers to provide even more user-centric value throughout the whole process. As a result, our roles as testers can help to uncover and even challenge assumptions. We then take feedback from that discovery, turn it into high-value test automation that frees us up to do more discovery. Manual testing is about humans engaging the application. TapQA coined a new phrase I absolutely love, Humanual Testing. It puts the value on us as humans in the testing process because it's us as humans, not machines, that ultimately are using the application. Doesn't it make sense that we as humans are therefore the ones assessing it? Now, please don't misunderstand me. Test automation is a powerful tool, but it is a tool in our toolbox. Again, it is not a complete test strategy, nor a strong test strategy without humans partnering alongside it to bring the heart to the test experience. You can't, and dare I clutch my Southern pearls, say you shouldn't automate everything. But if you choose to, you still need to partner in with manual testers to develop automation that is valuable and fully leveraged. When I joined Calendly, they had it all together: continuous delivery, integration, automated test environment. Calendly, we're cool. Yep. If you don't have an account, you should get it. but I asked what their test automation was covering, and they pointed me to their pipeline dashboard, proudly showcasing everything in green. Okay, but what is it? Well, it's all of our tests running, he said. Cool. What's it testing? Well, you have to go look at the test in the code. Okay, any reports? Sure, you can see it has all run successfully on this dashboard. I think at this point the developer was getting a little annoyed with me, but still, I politely persisted. How do you know the value of each test? How do you prioritize? How do you adjust based on risk? How do you, well, as he interjected, yep, there it was, the chink in the armor. It's always there. Every organization has it in some form or another. You wind up not leveraging your, without a plan, your test automation runs the risk of losing its value, and you wind up not leveraging it to do things like reduce your test cycles or remove risk or have more high value engagement from the test team or open up opportunities for more user-centric testing. Instead, you create confidence through over-testing, which ultimately leads to a bloated test automation suite that you then need to figure out how to reduce because it's taking too long to run or it's too cumbersome to maintain. Some of you listening may be saying this is all big team implementation. It's just me and there's another tester here. They don't listen to us. They just want us to check the box and we don't have advocacy. But you can resurrect, reclaim, and redefine manual testing. You have to make a choice to operate at that level of excellence, show up to the conversations, engage and collaborate, and relentlessly advocate for the customer. When you exhibit that level of excellence, it changes the narrative, increases the expectation, and you shift from a vicious cycle to a beautiful cycle. That higher expectation bolsters and empowers manual testers, driving more engagement from the test team, thus empowering the testers to exhibit an even higher level of excellence. I saw it at Calendly. I saw it manifest at Calendly. When I joined, the team was oversourced across the squads, making it difficult for them to engage beyond clearing the test column. And while a significant amount of test automation was in place, it wasn't leveraged to its full potential to provide the test team with more time to focus on other areas of the testing. Our efforts weren't even included in the story estimation. And it wasn't for lack of wanting, the team just didn't realize what they were missing out on. As a leader, I focused on that advocacy and socialization. We needed the team to know and see our value beyond that single step in the process. One of the more strategic changes was making adjustments in our org and team assignments so that people were better aligned according to their strengths. So while we created space for them to engage more, they were also more passionate and happy about the work that they were doing. Now the team is expected to show up, and it's because they increase their level of excellence. They win internal awards, get major shout outs from engineering team members on a regular basis. People go to them for information on the product because they've shown that they have the information. But they had to step into the conversation, they had to own the narrative, and they had to show up. In their striving for excellence, they were dismissing unintentional low expectations and began showcasing the absolute badasses that they are. Sometimes you gotta tell people how awesome you are. Don't sit around waiting for them to ask you. For example, I like to talk to other executive leaders and founders about their views on quality. And recently I was speaking with the CTO of a small startup. After brief introductions, he started to apologize, saying he wasn't sure if our conversation would be much value for me. We don't have a QA team, our developers do it. Human brains are expensive, manual testing is not efficient. Well, y'all know I heard that before. But as he continued, I found the chink in the armor. He said, our developers are great at testing the small individual components they build, but they're not good at testing across the application, like the integration of those things fall through the cracks. I want to automate everything, but there seem to be some roadblocks. My response, really? That's surprising. Our conversation shifted and I started to challenge him on the value of quality. By the end of our conversation, he said, you really challenged my assumptions and views on QA and quality. I realized I'm actually doing the quality function. Thank you. He thanked me for challenging him. It's because I socialized the value of testing. I talked about all the ways testers can help, and I didn't accept his expectation. Instead, I questioned it. Cummings, John, and Peer wrote, you will always need specialized testers who can use human heart, imagination, knowledge, and experience to do investigative forms of testing. And that's why manual testing is such a powerful test strategy. Use it alongside test automation. Let it empower you to explore all the nooks and crannies. Leverage tools to create space to do more of it. Spend time getting inside the customer's mind. Do things the wrong way. But we have to champion it, socialize its value, change our mindset, and break out of the narrow-minded expectations. Let's shine a light on the value of humans testing. We need to understand the foundation of our discipline to empower us to engage outside of the QA review column. All right, that's about time for me today. But before I close, which of the 3 R's do you need to spend the most time on? What would it look like if you resurrected, reclaimed, and redefined manual testing? And what guiding mantras do you have that can help you with your 3 R's? All right. Thank you so much for your time today.
Awesome. Thanks, Erika. That was a great talk. I loved your energy. And our chats just have been exploding with I think, just really good positive feedback and a lot of questions. But,
I tried to catch some of it.
But no, that was great. I really enjoyed it. I think a very fresh perspective on manual testing. I think it's definitely touched a nerve with a lot of our audience. Manual testing a lot of times gets, the back seat or no seat sometimes, like you said, they don't have us to the table. So yeah, we've got about 10 minutes. Let's try to go through as many questions as possible.
Okay.
All right. One question is around leadership, maybe, I think it's similar to sort of your experience you related about meeting that CTO from the startup, right? Like, what questions do you ask leadership to get an idea if they empower QA, before you, let's say you join a QA team or you sort of are looking for people to hire, right? In terms of getting them into your team or prioritizing quality.
So there's going to be 2 different questions. So if I'm asking another leader, like if I'm joining an organization or, if I'm consulting with an organization, I'm asking them about their quality culture. And it's a very simple question, like, what is your culture of quality? And their answers are telling. If it's a high culture of quality, they're likely not talking to me, right? They're moving on. They're not seeking out the help. But if it's a high culture of quality, they're clearly talking about how QA is already embedded, how that they know where they are in the process. A low culture of quality, they're like, well, our testers, we have some testers, we have a couple of testers, and they test before it goes out to production. That's usually going to be an indicator that, okay, you probably have low culture of quality because you're sitting them at the end like a gatekeeper. They are at the end of the conversation. And one of my follow-on questions on or as to a response like that would be, how many developers do you have? And if they tell me, oh, well, I've got 2 QA, but I've got 20 developers, how are they covering all of that? And what does that look like? So I'm asking them those things to understand what is your mindset around quality. And then I'm starting to dig into what would you like your mindset to be, or why are you looking to transform quality? What is it? Where do you want to go? Are you seeing a problem? Because you're having this conversation because there's something you want to change. So what is that problem? So kind of take them down that path and a journey to getting them in the mindset of what they're thinking today, and then looking at it against, well, I see this problem and I know it's wrong, but this is where we're at today. And I'm not saying it's wrong, but I see where I want to go type thing. So trying to marry those.
Got it.
Yeah. So that's how I would talk to another leader.
Awesome. Okay. All right. Second question is around feedback that we get from QA teams, right? So this person has asked, my issue is that I have tons of QA feedback, but the dev team is slow to fix it. How do I motivate the dev team to sort of, fix the issues versus just working on building new stuff?
Yeah. I want to give a quick shout out to Carlotta. I was just scrolling through and she gave a really sweet compliment. So thank you. You know what? This one, I've started to tie it to customers. So this is that empowerment piece. When you are a gatekeeper, your developers are not going to be invested. When you're operating from a gatekeeping mentality, your developers are not going to be invested in quality. When you enable and empower them with information, I think Jessica, was that her name before us? I forgot her name already. I tried to connect with her on LinkedIn. Who was talking about
Jennifer.
Jennifer,
Yeah.
forgive
Yeah.
me if you're seeing this. Jennifer talked about metrics, and a few other people have talked about metrics over the last couple of days as well. And so you want to empower them with information, and they're motivated by not having that shame or that blemish. So we have SLAs at Calendly. We have service level agreements associated with our bugs. So we assign our bug severity, and we say, hey, we have all agreed that we are going to fix Sev 1 in this time frame, Sev 2, Sev 3, and down to Sev 5. And here's the time frame. And when they breach, we're going to raise that up. The developers are motivated by this, because when that report comes out, your squad, you've got breaches. Not only do you have bugs in your backlog, but you also have breaches, and they're like picky things, Sev 4s that could be fixed quickly, but you're not prioritizing them. That's a blemish. And so it's almost like you're gamifying it. What developer doesn't like gaming, right? So you want to motivate them to motivate them by empowering them to not have to feel, because we're not badgering, but to not have to feel badgered by QA constantly saying, can I get these fixed? Can I get these fixed? But instead you're creating spaces for them to self-serve. And that often comes from metrics, and metrics in a way that they don't have to go look at a dashboard, because that wasn't working either, right? I've done that before. It's like, here's your dashboard. It's like, no, that's not working. Okay, well, this is a way that gets it in your face as part of the new feature work that you're doing and helps you to prioritize it. It doesn't always work, but it is definitely, it's definitely a starting point.
Sure, got it. Before we head on to the next question, folks, for all of you who are attending, please just take a moment to fill out the poll question. It's available on the polls tab right next to chat. All right, let's move on. Quite a few questions around, I think, automation versus manual testing. So I think the first one is around, how do you empower manual sort of testers, or like you said, Humanual testers, to feel empowered and not feel pressured to just constantly automate everything, and you shouldn't be doing manual testing?
Yeah, and that's the leader's job, right? You've got to. We as leaders have to change that mentality and promote that value within them. There's not a tester that I've hired or a team that I've not gone to that I haven't had to build them up. I haven't had to help them understand, you should be in this conversation. It's not okay that you were excluded from this, or not even intentionally just forgot about you. And so I work so much on, when I talk about relationships, I lead from that space so much, because in QA, it's so much of building us up, making us comfortable, confident, and comfortable to be able to have these conversations, and to know that it's okay to ask the questions. If you don't know, ask the questions. And if a developer makes you feel small for that, that's them. That's not you. That's not okay. And leadership around those people should not make that okay, right? And I've been in those spaces where I've had developers make me feel small in spite of coming from a development background. They didn't know that about me, And so I take great care, and it is I feel it's my responsibility to always build up QA so that they feel confident in whatever space, because there's so much knowledge that we have in the way that we exercise the system. So much value. And so we as leaders have to socialize that and build up our people to feel confident.
Got it. All right. Another question around, I think, culture is, it's very common, something fails in production and QA is like the first team that gets blamed. How do you overcome that, right? Or what are some of the sort of the techniques or experiences that you could share around that?
Blameless RCAs are kind of the thing right now, right? And if you don't have blameless RCAs, drive that. Get in the driver's seat. Be the person who brings that to the table. Blameless RCAs it sets the tone for the conversation. And here's the thing. We have got to not be ashamed about calling out issues that occurred prior to delivery to QA. Because the reality is, we didn't put the issue there. We're not responsible for fixing it. Could we have caught it? Possibly. And we need to look at that. We need to say, we missed this issue. This is what we're doing. This is how we are resolving this within the QA realm. But let's also talk about how it passed code review. Let's talk about how it passed requirements, design. Let's figure out how we're fixing this across the delivery lifecycle. So being intentional about that conversation and driving it, being the advocate for that conversation, and finding your voice. I joke, right? I release tension by kind of being quirky and fun, and but I'm still going. I'm going to hold everybody accountable in the space. We've got to figure out as QA how to hold everybody accountable so the conversation doesn't start and stop with QA as the blame holder, because then we don't fix the problem. And that's the thing that you take back and it's like, okay, we're going to do this, but I wonder if there's some other things that we could do further up the pipeline that will help us improve this as well, because we don't want to get to the end of the cycle where we're testing, and that's where we find these type of bugs. And then you could talk about how much it costs when it's at that phase versus fixing it earlier. And so some of it's data, and having that to like back up and bolster your conversation, but blameless RCAs.
Got it. No, that's a great trip. Awesome. All right, Erika, I think we're done. We're out of time. But thanks a lot again. I really enjoyed your presentation, enjoyed your talk. I think it was very, very engaging. Probably the audience, most popular with the audience talk, I think it was yours. And I'm glad you could. I'm glad we could sort of share this with you and get your insights on manual QA. So thanks again. Thank you for taking the time, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.